G'day guys, back with the Circle. You've all been asking for more talk about Rites of War. Well, today you're going to get the most popular one, Pride of the Legion, and also the two most unpopular ones. You'll see what they are in just a minute. So, Rites of War. As we've explained in the past, you need to have a Master of the Legion in your army, so this is obviously a Legiones Astartes thing, in order to access Rites of War. This might be a Legion Praetor, or it could be a Consul Delegatus, a Legion Herald, or even a Primarch. Now, when it comes to Rites of War, not all Rites of War, of course, are created equal. Pride of the Legion is pretty much an all-give Rite of War. The limitations are not really that bad. So, in this army, obviously, the benefits it gives you: all veterans and Terminator squads are now troops choices in the Force, and units of either of these types must be selected as the Force's compulsory troop selections. So if you take this Rite of War, Legion Terminators become your troops, you'll take Legion Terminators as your troops. At least 2 of them. That's no problem. Also, command squads may take a Land Raider of either the Proteus or Phobos type as a dedicated transport, which is great, that's just a win right there. The limitation: should all veterans and Terminator squads in the Force be destroyed in the battle, then the enemy counts as having scored an additional secondary objective. So, you give away 1 victory point, essentially, if you lose your whole army. If it's got to that point, you've probably lost the battle anyway. So, it's not the biggest limitation in the world, and again, it's only 1 secondary victory point you're giving away. And the other limitation, you may not take an Allied Force detachment. Not exactly the greatest loss in the world. So, with this Rite of War, you're also able to take your Legion Elite Terminators, provided they don't have any restrictions on it, as your compulsory troops. So you won't be able to take things like Red Butchers or Siege Tyrants, or I think Grave Wardens, as your compulsory troops, for numerous reasons. Either they're in the heavy support slot, or they're completely unscoring, can never score, that kind of thing. So, and always count as destroyed at the end of the game, which is not great. So because of that, that's a slight limitation. But something like Emperor's Children, Phoenix Terminators, great. Crimson Paladins, fine. Varagia, fine. All those sort of elite things, Sekhmet Terminators, all can be taken as compulsory troops. Now, some legions have better versions of this Rite of War for themselves, like Guard of the Crimson King for the Thousand Suns is just better. It's possibly a overpowered and broken Rite of War. Well, no possibly about it, it is. Veterans also make fantastic troops. Most people use this Rite of War in order to take Terminators as troops, but the beauty of taking veterans as troops is you can get those juicy special weapons, those special rules that veteran squads get, that kind of thing, combi weapons, you name it, and you can squeeze it into a troop slot. So it saves you having to pay a troops tax and then buy that unit on top of that. Armies like the Alpha Legion, where they have their mutable tactics and so could infiltrate units, this becomes an amazing Rite of War. You can potentially have an entire Terminator company infiltrate in turn 1. Because, of course, why not? It's an option that's open to you. Not saying you should do it, but you can have a lot of fun by doing it. And this Rite of War is meant to represent that. Taking a Terminator elite force or a veteran elite force. The downsides, they're not really downsides in the scheme of things. If it was you lost a secondary victory point for each unit of Terminators or veterans you lost, that would be a very different kettle of fish. But it's not, so you don't have to worry about it. And the fact you can't take an allied force is not really a huge letdown. Allies are not hugely popular in 30k. It does happen from time to time, but there are things like the Army of Dark Compliance, for example, or Shattered Legions, which essentially allows you to take allies in the force with heaps of benefits and very few drawbacks, or other Rites of War perhaps that are out there, or certain war gear you can put onto characters that allows you to take other units from other legions, or Cortex Controller characters, for example, taking Cybernetica units in their army, Thalax, that kind of thing. So there's a few ways around it, not really a huge limitation. So, if this is the most popular Rite of War, what's one of the most unpopular? The Fury of the Ancients. This is one I'm going to try playing at a event coming soon, just for a laugh more than anything. And I've played against it before it was a Death Guard army, and that's the only time I've ever seen it. One time, and my mate who was running it, Danny, he was running it just for a laugh himself, because he has lots of dreadnoughts and they're fun. Basically, your Legion Dreadnought Talons and Legion Contemptor Dreadnought Talons become compulsory troops choices and can no longer be taken as elites choices. Which is a bit of a, okay, whatever. Unfortunately, things like Mortis Dreadnoughts, Derrideos, Leviathans, that kind of thing is still restricted to their normal slots. So you're getting Dreadnoughts as troops. Okay, that's a mediocre thing. What's the limitations? Well, there's 4 limitations for that one positive, and they're bad. So first, the detachment must contain a Forge Lord. So remember, you've already used a HQ slot in order to get the Rite of War. Now you must have a Forge Lord as well. Okay, that kind of makes sense, it's Dreadnoughts. But you must also take a Primus Medicae. Okay, I get it, he's important for putting them in the Dreadnought, but once the Marine's in the Dreadnought, you don't really need the Primus Medicae still, do you? It's silly. That should be just sort of a blank slot, because unfortunately all 3 of your HQ choices you're allowed are just used up straight away. And I say that all your HQ slots are used up because the army may not take an allied detachment or fortifications of any kind as another negative modifier. The army automatically loses any roll to seize the initiative. For each dreadnought destroyed from this detachment, the opposing player gains 1 additional victory point. Ouch. And that's why you don't see it. Okay, you gain dreadnoughts as troops, but there's a HQ type who allows you to actually take 5 dreadnoughts as part of his unit. You could take 2 of him and someone to be the warlord of the army, and that would be 10 dreadnoughts right there. If you look in the elite slots, well, you can take another 4 Talons of 3 Contemptors in your elite slots, and 3 Talons of 3 Leviathans in your heavy support slots, and multiple Talons of Cordis Dreadnoughts, 3 again in your fast attack. You could end up with something like 36 Dreadnoughts off the top of my head, maybe more, in just a normal Legion army, if you had the points for it. Okay, you'd still need some troops choices, so you'd need like 2 minimum tactical squads. Okay, that's 300 points. Who cares? The fact that you've got to pay so many points for this Rite of War and you lose just so much for taking it, it's why you never see it played. And I'm running it just because I think it's funny. It's thematic. I'm running a list which uses Thousand Suns Assyrian Dreadnoughts. And it uses Boxnauts, a couple of Contemptors, that kind of thing. And the joke is there's just an army of boomers, which I think is pretty hilarious. Yeah, it's a potato. It's a potato Rite of War. Don't enjoy it. People who play it don't really enjoy it because if you take just 4 Dreadnoughts, that's 4 VPs if you lose them. And it's not hard to kill 4 Dreadnoughts in a 2,000 point game. And that's just an example. I mean, 3,000 Age of Darkness is very common play level. Good luck. Nobody likes the Fury of the Ancients Rite of War. And especially because basically all the effects except for making Dreadnoughts troops can just be done in a regular Legion army and you get 0 of the drawbacks. So, again, some armies benefit from this more than others. Something like the Iron Warriors, they'll do well with this. Iron Hands, giving every Dreadnought Blessed Order Simulacra, that could be pretty good. I think they can all take it on their Dreadnoughts, I'd have to double check. But 10 points each, and you can gain a whole point back on a fight plus the end of each shooting phase. Yeah, better than nothing. Yeah, that's really it for Legions that would really do well with this, I think. Nobody else really gets many benefits unless they take their own Rites of War. Like Salamanders can have insane resilience and involve saves against like Melters and Plasmas and stuff, but that's only if you take their Rite of War, so no. No, that would be it. Pretty much an Iron Hands, maybe Iron Warriors. Maybe Dark Angels, actually, if you had like Acid Heavy Bolter Dreadnoughts, but we'll see how Acid Heavy Bolter Ammunition works soon when they release Book 9. Alright, let's move on to third and final for today, the Brethren of Iron, and this one I have never seen played. I've done it myself though. Does that count? Now, Castellac's Battle Automata Maniples may be taken as non-compulsory troops choices, Vorax Battle Automata Maniples may be taken as non-compulsory fast attack choices, and Domitar Battle Automata may be taken as non-compulsory elites choices. Any Tech Marine may be equipped with a Cortex controller at 15 points. I ran this Rite of War. It went pretty well. It's a surprisingly competitive Rite of War because, unlike in a Mechanicum army that has Castellax, Vorax, Domitar, in a Legion army, what happens is the Legionnaires plug the gaps in the army. The things that Castellax and Vorax and stuff don't do well, the Legionnaires do well, and vice versa. Things that Legions don't do well, Castellax and such do well. But the thing is, you have to have lots of Cortex controls. This means you need to take lots of Tech Marines. The limitations, of course, is where this comes in. You can't have more Battle Automata Maniples of any type than it has squads with the Legionaries Astartes special rule. Okay, fine, that's easy. At least one model with a Cortex controller must be included in the detachment per 3 Cybernetica Cortex equipped units in the detachment. So for me, I just took a Forge Lord as my second HQ choice, and that was no problem. I took him and a Praetor, and by doing that, I was able to take a unit of Castellax and a unit of Domitar in my army because I didn't exceed the 3 Cortex controller requirement. Now, you can't give them Paragon of Metal. That means if they get outside of Cortex controller range, they start doing their own shit, which is not ideal. Of course, within range, great. They also don't have the ability of it will not die on them, which, it's a bit of a bummer, but it only affects one model, so, Forge Lord, or Ironfather / Warsmith must be taken as the compulsory HQ choice for this detachment. If this Rite of War is used as the army's primary detachment, because you can actually use this on a secondary detachment, because it actually has no allied detachment restriction. Now, Forge Lord, of course, every Legion has access to this console type, and the Ironfather and Warsmith are Praetor upgrades for both the Iron Hands and Iron Warriors respectively. Out of the two, I personally think the Warsmith is the better choice. You could have a lot of fun with this as an Iron Warriors player. I mean, Iron Hands are tough, don't get me wrong. These units are going to be great, but the Warsmith in an Iron Warriors army can do things like take a squad of their own personal Domitar, the Protector Boys, have them with their shields protecting the Praetor, and take a couple of these guys as backup. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Combine it with some Siege Tyrants, sprinkle in some tactical squads, and you have a really nasty list there. But of course, Iron Circle do get gunned down pretty quickly. The beauty of it is that having an army full of Toughness 7 monstrous creatures surrounded by Legionnaires and Terminators and stuff, that's where that shit gets scary. Now, the only console types that may be included in the detachment are the Forge Lord and the Praevian. Again, not a big deal. Praevian, it's always a solid choice, because it's just you get Castellax or Vorax, but better. So, okay, fine. Other thing is, because you have a Cortex controller in the army, what you can actually do is also take a unit of Thalax as a heavy support choice. Just throwing it out there for each Cortex controller you have. Yeah, could be good. Could be good for some faster stuff to harass people with. It's a great Rite of War. No one ever uses it. Contrast this with Fury of the Ancients, which is a terrible Rite of War and no one ever uses, and Pride of the Legion, which is a fantastic Rite of War, which everyone uses. Legions that this works really well with. Obviously Iron Hands, Iron Warriors, Thousand Suns, who I used it with because all of a sudden you've got Psyker Forge Lords, Psyker Praetors, and Psyker Praevians, which mean they can boost quite a lot of stuff. Now, keep in mind, the Praevian is not a Brotherhood of Psykers, even though he has a unit. Just important, you can't go casting like Biomancy on your shit. That would be horribly overpowered, and you can't do it. But for the Thousand Suns, they have their own Castellax Achaea, which are a heavy support choice, and they actually tie in really well with this army. Because you're adding even more monstrous creatures, but they don't need the Cortex Controller, they just need to be within 24 inches of a Psyker. And of course, you have such access to Psykers, you can do a lot of fun things with this. Personally, when I play, I would take a Master of the Forge, or Forge Lord, and I would take him with a Conversion Beamer, Cortex Controller, and Servo Automata, which I would then give missile launchers with rad missiles, and he would sit in the back line, and I'd sit him with things like triple Darkfire Castellax, for example, which is just nasty. It's just nasty. If you want, though, you can keep the Forge Lord with the Servo Arm and walk him up with the robots and actually perform repairs on them as he goes. In the case of Iron Hands, for example, if you had a unit of Gorgons with an Iron Father walking behind a unit of Domitar, good luck killing them all. Especially if they add a Apothecary into the unit. Primus Medicae, if you will. Because the robot's going to be getting healed by the Servo Arm on that Iron Father. Actually, no, you couldn't add the Primus Medicae, sorry, because the console is restricted in this force. But anyway, they've still got Feel No Pain on the Gorgons. Doesn't matter. Iron Father, Servo Arm, fixing up the Domitar as they walk along. Of course, the whole unit is equivalent functional toughness 5. You need something that's actually strength 10, or strength 9 or 10, sorry, to actually instant kill Gorgons. So they'll be getting their invulnerable saves against a whole host of things. You can't run Dreadnoughts at them because the Haywire from the Domitar is just going to fuck up any Dreadnoughts. It's hilarious. Thing is, of course, it's a lot of points, but it's a great way to fill out an army quickly because a unit of 3 Castellax, a unit of 3 Domitar, 2 tactical squads, an Iron Father, and a unit of Gorgons, that's a 2,000 point army, basically, of Iron Hands. Maybe throw in a Land Raider Achilles for some decent long-range firepower, and you are cooking with gas. That is the sort of army list you can build with this. It's a great way for people who don't want to spend a huge amount of money on the hobby to get into it, and you can have a lot of fun with it. Me, myself, I want to expand my small Iron Hands detachment that I have by basically doing this Rite of War. I want to add 2 tactical squads to the army, and I want to take a unit of Domitar and a unit of Castellax, but I want to put the Castellax with the Praevian. I think it'll work out better. Giving things like Tank Hunters to Darkfire Castellax, for example. Ooh, nasty, but fun. Anyway, that's 3 more Rite of Wars for you. As you can see, there's all these different directions you can go in with how you apply it and the fun you can have. But as it stands, I find that there's one fantastic Rite of War here, there's one hidden gem Rite of War here, and there's one utter fucking turd here. But don't let that distract you. Don't let it stop you, don't let it kill your enthusiasm. Fury of the Ancients, terrible Rite of War, but it's fun, it's thematic. I myself am going to use it at an event. Not because I think I'll win me the event, it won't, but because it'll be funny. It'll be fun, it's thematic, it's a chaplain, and it's going to have not a chaplain, it's a guy who I normally use as my chaplain who'll be counting as a praetor for this game, most likely. And it'll be him and a Forge Lord and a Primus Medicae, and an army of Dreadnoughts, and they drive around a Macedon. I'm calling it the Boomer Bus. It's a bunch of boomers, the Grey Pilgrims, going caravanning around the country on retirement. It's funny as fuck. Anyway, Mac of the Hour Circle, thank you all for watching this episode. This is 3 more Rites of War, and I'll be back with some more Rites of War very soon. See you all next time.